because I guess it's your name and Sarah's thing. Sarah Buckler?
Sarah Buckler. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So I wasn't sure which one of you were going to pop up.
You get me today.
Yeah, but that's okay because as a former healthcare administrator
Yeah.
and somebody who quit drinking a little over 2 years ago, I
Nice.
can talk about this at length.
I love it.
So, all right. Typically, we'll just I'll get a little bit about your background, what got you into this,
Yeah.
and then we'll talk about what we're seeing, I guess, in the current space. As a healthcare administrator, access was always a thing, and
For sure.
I don't miss it.
No, I don't either.
I
I'm a physical therapist by trade, and I tell you what, one of the worst parts of that job was probably very similar to yours, and that was working with physicians. They
yeah,
can be a pain in the behind.
yeah, yeah, and then with the but the same kind of like what you were saying, like even with the physical therapy is is like all the documentation, all the rules, all the rejections, all the this, all the that, because, I tell my wife, like, I'm in the process of starting something entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And in looking at what I'm interested in and what I do, we would basically have hold on, this thing's trying to admit something. Um, Oh, I was telling my wife, I'm like, yeah, I could go back to school for counseling or something, but I'll be making the same amount of money I was making. And, when you get into all that and 2 more years of school, and then it's really not that. It's just the bureaucracy that you have to go through that makes it not as appealing.
Yep.
And even one of my physicians, I work out at the gym that was attached to the clinic I used to manage because we had PT, OT, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And he said one of his counseling friends is actually doing it more of a coaching style because even with his credentials, just because he doesn't want to deal with the insurance bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff and reimbursement rates. So,
Yeah. Completely understandable because
yeah.
the requests and the things that they're asking for are only going up, and reimbursement is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, it goes down. They just keep making it harder to get,
100%.
which isn't good. But
Yeah.
all right, well, let's get it going.
Let's go. Asteroid of fear.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking to Dr. Strain. And we are going to be talking about some addiction. He is with Cenikor. Is that pronounced right?
Yep. Cenikor
Okay.
Foundation.
Yep. And funny thing is I do Uber Eats, and I drove by one the other day and saw the
Nice.
name and was like, oh, it seemed familiar. And so then I Googled it, and I was like, oh, that's what it is. And then here we go. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into healthcare and addiction and all
Let's
that
do it.
kind of stuff. But let's start a little bit about where'd you grow up and how was life like that shaped you to lead you here? Because you mentioned earlier you're a physical therapist by trade.
Yep.
So where'd you grow up? What was life like, and how did you get pushed that direction?
Yeah. I grew up in the Oklahoma Panhandle,
Okay.
the absolute middle of nowhere. Graduated with a class of 9. So very, very small.
I thought mine was small I graduated a year early with, I think, 42, and my original class was 77 because we're in East Texas nowhere.
Yeah.
400
100%.
people when I got here. I think 800 by the time I graduated. Gas was 83 cents a gallon when I left for the Navy. And now, as the main city is pushed in, our small town has kind of become a hub where a lot of physicians and stuff like to live. And my wife and I moved back from Austin, and we were paying like $925 to $975 for a 3-2 house out towards Bastrop.
Yeah.
We get here and like a 3-2 duplex across from the high school was like $1,500 a month, and I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on in my little town of 400 people? And the clinic I started managing was in a smaller big town near where
Yeah.
we're from. And they're like, "Oh, I live there. I live there. I live there." And I go, "Ah, now it makes sense. All the doctors are moving there. The
Mark
2A school
Joseph.
is now a 5A school."
Yeah,
And yeah,
I know the feeling. We felt the same when we moved here. But yeah, very small town. I grew up with two great parents. It was a very Mayberry style home.
yeah,
You knew everybody. You knew everybody's grandmother. All the doors were unlocked. Just walk in. It was a good neighborhood. We didn't grow up with a lot. My family didn't make a lot of money. We never knew as the kids that we were poor. We never
right.
went without. But yeah, overall, it was a great family. But I knew from a young age that I wanted to live somewhat of a different lifestyle. I
Hmm.
didn't want money to be a struggle. So, my parents always told me if that's the life you want, find something that pays well. So I looked into, different practices. I knew everybody that I saw that was in the medical field was driving cars that I wanted to drive. So, just looked around, was applying to med school. But at the time, I was working as a technician in a physical therapy clinic, and the guy offered me a partnership if I would go to PT school instead. So switched at the last minute and went to PT.
Funny thing was, I was a pre-med major, so I was a health and kinese, working at a gym, health and kinese major, because that actually gave me enough elective room to still take
Yeah,
literature, which I enjoyed. But I was able to take like healthcare law, pharmacology,
yeah,
addiction sciences, different things like that. And the lawyer for the hospital that I eventually got laid off from, I was born at, all that.
yeah,
Um, After taking healthcare law, I kind of reconsidered. And one of my literature professors was writing grad school recommendations, and he's like, I'm more than happy to write you one to be a doctor. He goes, I just don't think you're going to be able to be the kind of doctor you want to be. He goes, because I have friends that I went to undergrad with who are now doctors. And he was referring to, I'm very much the people person,
yeah,
and kind of the way healthcare law, all the rules, this and that, the other. And now I know as a practice manager, hey, 15 to 20-minute slots, you need to be seeing 22 to 25 patients a day.
yeah,
I very much understood what he meant by I would never be able to be the doctor I wanted to be.
yeah. And make a big profit anyway.
Yeah, well, you would be, yeah, if you did it solo, or you're subjected to work for the system, and, systems come down with lots of rules.
Yeah. And most of the private owned facilities or, clinics that you'll go to is where you get the doorknob physicians. The entire time they're talking to you, they're sitting right by the door. So as soon as they get done, they walk out, and the nurse comes in. And
Yep.
it's like clockwork.
So what even led you to being a physical therapy assistant?
You mean to be a physical therapist in general?
Well, yeah. Well, you said you were doing some assistance work and
Oh,
they
as a
offered you the
technician.
partnership.
Yeah,
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 what
yeah.
what led you to that
So I was
interest?
a dual sport athlete in college, played basketball and golf, and had an unfortunate, I guess, circumstance. You would call it, wasn't necessarily an injury, but I had a tumor growing in my knee that I had to get removed,
Oh.
and had to go through 10 months of rehab after that. And I was like, this is a pretty cool gig.
You
I
can
saw.
actually see it when you do it yourself. Like I herniated my neck and back, and it took a while,
Yeah,
but the thing was is I realized, like, if you put in the work, it actually works.
right. It's just shocking, isn't
It's
it?
painful, but it works if you religiously do
Yeah,
it.
100% it does, man. You're spot on there. But yeah, I was getting rehab there, and I saw some other people that I knew that were technicians there, and just got to talking to them, and then met the owner. And yeah, I just said, hey, look, I'm looking to have a job now that I'm kind of getting out of basketball and still playing golf, but had a lot more free time.
Right.
And said, I'd love to work here. So he offered me a job, minimum wage, making $5.50 an hour, and jumped on it. So yeah, that was how I got in to be a tech.
And what did you enjoy most about that experience, that when, you had to go med school, PT school, other than his offering being so generous,
Yeah.
what were you enjoying about the job at that time that made you kind of really commit and say, I I think I can do this and enjoy it?
I would say outside of the money, because really at 18 years old, that's what was motivating me. Um, it would be the time you got to spend with the people and getting
Hmm.
to know them. And then just the outcomes. You see people come in one way and leave 6 weeks later in another. That that's it's fulfilling, no matter if you're 18 or 48 years
Yeah.
old. So yeah, that was definitely what kept me there as a tech. I was like, this is pretty cool. Seeing these people come in here, they're limping in, they're coming in a wheelchair, whatever it may be, and then they're leaving walking normal. I was like, this is something I can get used to.
Yeah, and especially too, I think, like, my curiosity was you when you mentioned dual sport athlete. Um, Typically, some people have their own issue with something, and they see something that works, and that kind of just naturally pulls them
Yeah,
to
creates that
it.
spark.
Yeah, like as a passion because you knew it worked for
Yeah,
you, and so that makes a huge difference. So,
yeah.
how did where'd you end up going to PT school, and what was that like?
So I went to PT school at Langston University. It's an HBCU just kind of northeast of Oklahoma City. Um, and it was, to be honest with you, I kind of expected different in the sense of what it would pull out of you, what it would require.
Right.
I expected every free moment that I had to be a nose in a book, and that was going to be the only way I'd get through. And it wasn't necessarily that way. Um, we were a small class. They have a class of 14 in each class that they come in, 300 and something applicants. But yeah, I expected it to be, no free time in a sense. You go to school, and then when you're not in school, you're working on
You were
school.
thinking kind of that medical school kind of curriculum.
Yeah, that's what kind of gets thrown at you. Like, you better be prepared. They're gonna have a big ask for you every day, and it was. But if you managed it correctly, it wasn't that bad. You still had the free time. And for me, I was always kind of the last minute studier. Let
Yeah.
me study the night before, and I'll be good. So when I first got there, I was doing what I was told I needed to do and read every day, and the grades just weren't hitting like I wanted them to. And I finally was like, I've never done this in my life. Like, why am I changing the way I do it now? So I got to the point where after each class, I would review my notes for 10, 15 minutes after class, and then I would study them again the night before the exams, and up went the grades. So
Hmm.
yeah, it created a lot more free time, but yeah, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I met some friends who will be friends for life, that even helped me through the darker times of my addiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, the school itself was good. When you're in the moment, all you want to do is get out of it. It's
Yeah.
not exactly something that you're just loving, but looking back, it was a good time.
How do they do? How do they? Because I know when I worked at Brack in downtown Austin, which was a teaching school,
Yeah,
and they integrate students into the ER, and and
yeah.
then of course interns and all that. How did the PT? When do you start going hands on, or is it like book portion for a year and then hands on for a year, or how
Yeah.
do they kind of combine that?
Yeah, so it's a year-long program. Trimesters you go through during
Hmm.
the summer. It's a 3-year program. We started in June, and in June was our basic anatomy. I wouldn't say basic, but our anatomy class, and then we had the cadaver lab in the afternoon. So we did that from June to August, and then we had a. I don't want to get this wrong. I think we may have had like a small clinical rotation somewhere in there, but ultimately we went through school, started in June, went to next June, and then in that August we had an 8-week rotation. So we would get sent out to whether it was an outpatient, inpatient, rehab, neuro rehab, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
You go for that 8-week rotation, and then you go back for another 2 semesters of strictly didactic work. After that, then you have a full year of clinical rotations, which broke up into 3 different spots, two 12 weeks and an 8-week. And then you, again, go to different types of practices. And that's kind of the final year. So it gives you kind of the ability to prep for the board, do everything that you need to do to make sure you didn't do all this schooling for nothing.
I'm gonna ask a weird question, and I'm actually surprised that I don't know the answer to this. But when you mention like kind of neuro rehab, this and that, the other, so
Yeah.
you have physical therapists just like you have MD or DO,
Yep.
um, and Do they work in like specialties like physicians?
100%. So we'll have wound care specialists that
Oh
are physical
wow.
therapists. We'll have neuro specialists. We'll have lymphedema specialists. We'll have, orthopedic specialists. So yeah, whatever branch, you'll have hand specialists. It's such a dynamic and complex, part of
Hmm.
the body. I mean, people have their specialty in just doing hand rehabilitation. So yeah, you can find whatever branch you want to do.
That is wild because I
Yeah,
know at Brack we had this new hand surgeon. He was super young and like one of those prodigies kind of
yeah, yeah,
guys. But we had a couple that were very special and they love to do uh, work overseas for the underprivileged. And yeah, you realize like the hand thing is it's really a big deal
yeah.
to
100% it
specialize
is.
in it. And I can tell you, like I was in a thumb brace a couple of weeks ago. I think I jammed my thumb or did something to the knuckle, like reaching between the seats of the car, like I dropped something.
Yeah.
And you don't realize without a thumb, so much is hard.
What is it? Especially on a dominant hand.
Oh yeah, it was. It was my right hand. I was like, "Holy cow! Like this is really something." And because I helped take care of a gentleman who's actually missing some of his fingers. He got them cut off from a cutting torch, like on an oil rig. Yeah, and so I helped take care of him, and it's always interesting. And I'm like, now I kind of know how he feels.
Yeah.
But
And you underestimate just the common tasks. For women, it's always putting on makeup or
yeah,
doing hair. For men, as brash as this may sound, it's wiping and brushing your teeth.
yep,
It's like, I don't know how to do that with my non-dominant hand.
yeah, yeah. So what specialty did you kind of what in your rotations, what did you enjoy the most and then what did you end up kind of transitioning into?
Yeah. So I always kind of knew where I was going, because of the
Hmm.
partnership and being in a very rural area. It was everything we had. In the end, I was partnered in 3 outpatient clinics. We had rights in 3 hospitals, 2 nursing homes, 2 skilled facilities, and a home health company. And then we owned a
Wow.
personal gym. So we were in everything. As far as the rotations, you know, I did a neuro rehab. I did a no, sorry, I did 2 inpatient, just rehabilitations in hospitals, and then 1 outpatient clinical rotation, which half of that was pediatric. So yeah, I got a little bit of everything, but it was good. It was what I needed, just because I knew where I was going, I was going to have all of it.
Right.
We had contracts with schools where we were seeing, the children that needed it in the schools, doing the IPEs, all the stuff that comes with that. But yeah, it was kind of eye opening on how much of a scope that really covers when you're doing all that, and especially as a student, it's so different from doing an outpatient, say total knee replacement rehabilitation, and then going in for a acute brain injury.
Yeah.
It's vastly different on what we're doing. So yeah, it was eye opening, but I enjoyed a lot of it. Pediatrics really wasn't my thing. I
That
had to do wound care
seems hard.
on, yeah, I had to do wound care on a 8-year-old boy, and they couldn't sedate him, and you're cutting off, debriding all of that necrotic tissue, and it hurts.
I got
He's
burned on the back of both of my legs and spent
There you go.
months in the burn unit at Shriners and
It's no joke, is it?
yeah,
Um,
so I was
yeah,
one when it happened, and so I don't remember a lot of it. But as the years and growing, the skin stretching, and still, I stretch every day. I have sciatica that's terrible sometimes, but that tissue, the tensileness of it, it's been a constant battle.
it
But
is.
yeah, I would think pediatrics would be difficult
For sure.
as
It's
a
its own animal.
father.
Yeah, it's its own animal. So that was never something that I really felt called to. It was something that I did when I had to, or when
Yeah.
somebody needed me to, but it wasn't something I was seeking. Not by any
Yeah.
means.
And did you find, were you kind of excited about small town generality, kind of big scope, in a way that you're you're filling the gap for some of these people that might have to travel to further away, and
Yeah,
especially if they're older and
100,
already don't travel well.
yeah, 100%. And also being able to do that in your hometown is a pretty cool thing. Most of the people. Somebody has trouble getting into an outpatient, appointment. No problem. Let's just drop you down to home health. I'll come to your place and I'll see you. Having that flexibility to be able to do that was awesome. It comes with its own challenges when you're friendly. I don't want to say friends with everybody, but when you're friendly with everybody, there's an expectation at times.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to pay my deductible, or I don't need to pay my copay. It's Jake. So that's kind of a challenge, when you go back and work in your hometown. But you're going to have challenges like that, I suppose, anywhere. But yeah, it was cool. It was nice being able to be that bridge in a definite underserved community. I mean, we were 2 hours away from the closest mall. So yeah,
Wow.
it was very, very small town, middle of nowhere. So it was good to be able, and it was cool to be able to be that gap for sure.
So how long did you end up doing that, and kind of what was the next step after that, and
Yeah.
what caused you to propel to a next step?
Next step being physical therapy, or what I'm doing now.
Well, where did you go at after? How long did you stay there since you
Yeah,
were kind of partnered in, and where did you go after that, and what caused that? What was the decision behind it?
for sure. So graduated in 2013. In
Hmm.
2014, got a loan for $750,000 and bought my half of the practice. So then I was in. You're not going anywhere when you have that hanging over your head. So yeah, I stayed there for 10 years. I got, my half of it paid off. I would probably say 7, 8 years in. Was looking to buy the other half. That was always kind of the plan. As he was going to leave, I would purchase the last half, kind of give him an exit program, and just keep the thing running. Um, and God has His way of opening the eyes of the stubborn.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was one of those stubborn. From 2007, when I had that knee surgery for that tumor, is when I started on pain medication. And then I had another surgery that year and some other injuries, and it just kept me on that prescription meds for 18 months. Um, you're always taught as a kid, or I don't know. Yeah, I would say taught. It's always pushed as your kid. You don't want to be one of those people. You
Yeah.
don't want to be one of those drug addicts. And they
Hmm.
paint that picture that creates the stigma that we fight today. Um, so I didn't want to tell anybody. I was ashamed. I thought I was weak. I thought I was. Uh, it was a character or moral issue that I had. So I
Well,
just,
but you were still, you had the injuries. You were still able to get them prescribed.
yeah,
Um, yeah, you know, I don't know. Like it's one of these things. Like I grew up very sickly, and so I
yeah,
was always taking medicine, and like with asthma, and the protocol in the '80s and stuff was like theophylline and prednisone daily.
yeah, yeah,
And I had a spontaneous rupture of an eardrum, I think, when I was 9, and that was my first introduction to Tylenol 3
yeah.
with codeine. Um, but that wasn't my thing. But yeah. So where, like you said, you feel the shame. When was it? Like, I guess, was it in the surgeries after the rehab? Like you just didn't want to get off, or were you still legitimately having pain, or did you try to get off and your
Yeah.
body said no, and you're like, I'm going to continue on this, and then having to kind of hide it or maybe pretend like you were injured? Was that where the shame came from?
So the meds, you're right. They were prescribed 100% legitimately in the beginning. For
Right.
the pain. My quadriceps stopped functioning because I had to be immobilized for 6 weeks. So it just kind of prolonged that pain. So yeah, I was on it. I would say legitimately needed on it. I would say probably for the first 3 months after that surgery, and then again probably for another 30, 60 days after the second surgery. Um, So during that time, yeah, it was needed. But what I found was, I came, like I told you, from a small town, class of 9.
Right.
It was not a diverse town. Like it was, it was predominantly white. We had one black guy, love him to death. Ended up going to an all black school, a whole nother thing. But
Mm-hmm.
what I noticed is when I went to play basketball, now 90% of my teammates are from South Side Chicago. Um, I don't really feel like I fit in. It was like how am I going to mesh with these guys when we have so very little in common? And that was always kind of a problem for me. The social anxiety that came with that, wanting to be close to your teammates like you have been in every other team in your life. And then I realized when I was on those meds, that went away. Like I felt like I could be myself and I was accepted as, of course, it's all just lies and things going on in your own head, but it took care of that for me. And that was where the danger came in, because now I am giving, I guess, credit to the pills for taking away a different type of pain in my life,
Right.
or giving credit for success that I'm having. And then that just turns into the slippery slope of, I need physically, I need mentally. So that's how it became a
habit.
a habit. I was looking for a better word. Like it was a need for me to be who I needed to be for everybody else. And then getting into the physical therapy side as a tech, having to interact with people, there was always that underlying social anxiety, and those were taken away on those pills. So yeah, when I stopped having physical pain, nope, still having physical pain is what I tell the doctors, just so I could continue to get more. And back then it wasn't as regulated as it was now. You'd have physicians that say, "Hey, here's 60 pills with 6 refills.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do." Can't do that anymore. But so that's where it kind of came in, and I realized, maybe my junior year in college when I stopped taking them, oh crap, I can't. Like I'm withdrawing, and that's when like the fear and the shame sets in. Like I can't believe I allowed it to get to this. So then you start just kind of doing it in secret any way that you can. So fast forward, I'm on it until I graduate with my bachelor's degree. I'm on it for the few weeks that I'm moving and going to PT school. And then when I get there, I was there for about 4 or 5 days before school started, getting everything settled in. Then I don't have any way to get a prescription anymore. So the withdrawals come and, you just feel awful. You feel like you're dying. So I ended up calling my mom. And I said, "Mom, I've screwed up. I need help." And she was, of course, a super supportive, loving mother. "Not a problem. We'll take care of it. We'll get you help." So she called me or set me up with an appointment in a physician in Edmond, or pretty much Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down there. He's like, "Hey, not a problem. Prescribe me some meds." He said, "You start taking these, it'll get rid of the symptoms. And then these are, way easier to come off of." And
What did he give you?
It's called Trezix. It's the only time I've ever been prescribed that. And through all of the practicing that I've done here in, a rehabilitation facility and a rehab that I went to in Denver later in life, never heard that term before. None of them had. But it's dihydrocodone instead of just hydrocodone. But for some reason, it's less addictive, and there's less of it too. Has some other medications that are in it. Has caffeine in it. It's just a bundle of things. It's
It's
a lot.
like a Excedrin.
Pretty
like
much
a souped up Excedrin, because I know, like, I
100%.
take Excedrin. It's got the aspirin, the caffeine, and the acetaminophen.
Yeah, very similar. So that with dihydrocodone.
So Trivex, you said?
Trezix.
Trezix.
Trezex, I think.
Because you hear a lot of people, what is it, Suboxone that they go on for opiates?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So none of the physicians that I talked to back then knew anything about it. They knew that was the gold standard for treatment, but they weren't comfortable giving it to me because they didn't know anything about it. So he put me on the Trezix. He knew something about that, knew it would be easier. He was right. So he put me on the meds, was on those for a few months. Then I went to Tulsa. My sister was in law school at the time in Tulsa, and I forgot the meds. And I woke up and realized that about noon that next day that I hadn't taken anything, and I felt fine. Like I didn't have any withdrawals. I'm like, sweet, I'm off. The problem was I got off the drugs physically, but I didn't do any work upstairs. And that year that I was off the meds, the first year of PT school, was the darkest time of my life because I was I felt like I was doomed to be unhappy. Like that drug that gave me the comfort to be who I needed to be around everybody was no longer there. And now I'm plugged into this school where I'm having to grind and I'm having to do everything I can to make sure I pass and trying to mingle with my classmates who, again, I don't have a lot in common with as a HBCU. It was just an unnerving feeling. So I didn't feel like I fit in. I isolated, and it was awful. I mean, there were many times. Excuse me if I get a little choked up, but there were many times I'd wake up in that morning and be upset that I did. It's just I hated life. And I just remember thinking every day, like, is this really what life is like? Like, if this is what life is like off of the drugs, I don't want to experience it like this. And it was all because I didn't work on anything upstairs. I got off the drugs physically, but I didn't. So lo and behold, 8 months-ish later, playing in a stupid intramural basketball game, tore my meniscus.
Oh,
yeah. So I knew that I didn't want to get back on the pills, or let me rephrase that. I knew I wasn't supposed to. I wanted, no doubt I wanted. So I called the physician that got me off of the pills and said, hey, I tore my meniscus. I just need something kind of for the inflammation. So he's like, yeah, I got you covered. You don't need to come in. I'll just call it in for you. So I go to Walmart and pick it up, and he called me in 120 hydrocodone with 6 refills.
well,
So I knew better, but I took one, and I'll be damned. Everything was better again. Like I could be myself. I was interacting with these people. They were laughing, and everything was back to where it was supposed to be. And then, of course, I can just take one in the morning and then one at night, and I can control this, says every addict ever. Slippery slope. By the time that I finally got clean in 2022, I was taking around 260 milligrams of oxycodone a day just not to withdraw.
yeah, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's the state Seabiscuit.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is in PT school. So do you actually remain kind of on prescription the whole time through PT school?
For the most part, I would have some moments of clarity where I'm like, I can't let this happen again. And I would go back to that doctor and say, hey, I'm stuck again. Like I can't get off the hydrocodone. He would prescribe me more of the Tresix. And then 6 weeks or so later, I would decide that I went back on. I call him and he prescribed me again. And it was just this vicious cycle. So there was probably 2 or 3 times that he got me off of them.
With the Tresix, is that like a do you take a steady dose or did he taper you down?
No, it was just a steady dose. And even when I was taking that steady dose like I was supposed to, like when I didn't take it, the withdrawals weren't there. I mean, he wasn't wrong in the fact that it'd be easy to come off of. I didn't have any problems getting off of that.
That's weird. I wonder how that works. Like, so it plugs into the opiate receptor, but what about it is different that, makes it?
I think it's just the strength in a sense. If you're on heroin, it's going to be a harder detox than it is if you're on tramadol. And I think that's what it was. It was just such a lower dose. It was a, different medication in the sense, I'm sure, and I may be making this up, but maybe it was different in how it hit the receptors. And
right.
I don't know, the how all that stuff works.
The pharmacology,
right,
science part of it.
Whatever it's called. Availability, I don't know, making stuff right now. But anyway, I don't know how all that worked, but it was a lot easier to come off of. Like I didn't have any symptoms. I came off of it by accident, and it was like, oh, damn, I'm fine.
And, like I get the part when you say you didn't do any work upstairs. At what point, you said this was like a 2 or 3 times that you cycled with this and this doctor and everything. At what point did you start addressing the mental part of it?
When I
or even notice that needed to be addressed?
I didn't pretty much until right before I hit rock bottom in 2022.
So, and what was rock bottom?
Yeah, so I paid off my half of the business. I was looking in and working on all the paperwork and stuff to get the other half, get the loan and get the note to be able to purchase that from him. Luckily, God intervened with a couple of different things that kind of put a stop to that. Um, Luckily, but yeah. Anyway, I got to the point where it was pretty much mine in the making. Dollar per capita, we were probably number one in the state. We were a very successful company. And the entire time, my tolerance of the meds just kept getting higher and higher and higher. And what was really bothering me is, I'm in my hometown. I'm practicing. I'm quote unquote successful in my
Right.
hometown. So, you go places and the people who grew up with you or the parents of the kids you grew up with were like, man, Jake, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so great. Man, I'm so happy this is, going for you. You're such a success, blah, 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 blah.
But you
And
know
there,
inside.
do what?
But you know inside.
Right. And that's exactly it. Every time they would do that, a piece of me felt like it was dying inside because I felt like I was a fraud. Like, yes, I'm having this success, but inside I'm dying here. Like, I am an opiate addict to the core. I mean, where I'm taking, like I said, 260 milligrams of oxycodone a day. So it was like I was a fraud. They didn't see the dark parts, and I wanted it off so bad. I just didn't know how to do it. And, as an addict, we always rationalize, well, when I get the business purchased, I can just quote unquote take a vacation. Nobody will know. I can get admitted into a treatment center, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I started speaking to this girl who is now my wife, God bless her. And she had an eating disorder when she was 18, 19 years old, and she got admitted into a treatment center. So when we start talking, I'm learning this stuff, and I'm just quizzing her, like, what was it like?
Now, were y'all dating at the time, or just friendship type of or
No, we
colleague?
were dating at the time.
Okay.
So I'm asking her all these questions, because
And is she
inside,
aware? Is she aware of your use?
not until rock bottom. No,
Okay.
she became aware on a very awful level. Um, so I'm quizzing her because I want to know, like, I want this so bad. I want to be able to go to a treatment center like you did. I want to be able to get off of this because you said that you were clean from alcohol for 2 years now, right? So you know what it's like when you're handcuffed to a substance that it controls your entire life. It controls when I eat. It controls when I travel. It controls how long I can travel for. I have to make sure I have enough to get me through. Like,
Yeah.
I hated that. It controlled my life, and I wanted to get rid of that, but I didn't know how. I couldn't on my own. I tried to quit 1,000 times. So the 1,001st time that I tried to quit, I was about 36 hours in, no pills. Said, I'm not doing this anymore, so on and so forth. The same speech we give ourselves every time. And I was at a lady's house I was buying some Christmas presents for my parents. She was making these little stovetop cover things that were really cool. But anyway, I feel like crap. I'm not showing that to people, but inside, I have this cold sweats, the pain, the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, all the stuff that comes with opiate withdrawals. And I saw the cure to all of the pain that I was feeling in a form of a bottle of pills with her name on it. So what did I do? I grabbed the pills and I walked out. And in that moment, I knew that everything had changed. Like, you've gotten to the point in your addiction that you're willing to steal from a 70-year-old woman just so you don't have to feel that pain. And just the shame of that was enough to make me puke on the way home. But I got home, took the pills, and then it just kind of kept settling in, what had just happened and what I had just done. So at that point, the devil in your head starts eating you and telling you everything that you feel like you need to hear in that moment of how worthless you are and how you're a burden to everybody that cares about you. So I decided that I was going to take the pills back. So I took the pills back to the lady. I told her what I had done. I wrote out my little letter and had my pistol in the console, and I was going to go home and do what needed to be done, because what I felt is the strain name that had garnered so much respect for being just good people was now tainted because of me. And my mother and father and sister, uncle, all my family that still lived there in this small town was going to be shamed because of me. that I brought no positivity to their life. All I did was bring them down. They're better off without me. Um, and that was what was playing on repeat for hours on end. So I gave her the meds back, told her what I had done, heading home,
What
and
did she say? What was her reaction?
she was so kind and so welcoming, but there was something going on, and I could tell. I had tried to take the meds back a few hours before, and nobody was there. So in my head, it's telling me she went to the cops. Like I got busted. Turns out I was right in that, but she welcomed me in, and they were just so kind of kind but off-putting. Like it was just weird. You could tell the dynamics were off. Um, so yeah, she ended up going to the cops. Didn't know that at the time. I told her I did just to see her reaction and just to prove that I was right. But anyway, yeah, beside the point. On the way home, I at that time before I was going to do what I was going to do, I felt like my now wife, girlfriend at the time, had a right to know, what happened. So I called her, and through the tears and through the hysteria of me trying to explain that I've been an opiate addict for 17 years and that I had just done what I did and so on and so forth. She couldn't probably understand anything that I was saying, but she just kept repeating three words to me that I'll never forget. She kept just saying, just come over, just come over, just come over. And I did. And she unknowingly at that time talked me off the ledge. Because in that moment when I got there, she gave me something I didn't feel like I deserved, and that was love. She said, "It's okay. We'll get through it." I wanted her to yell at me. I wanted her to tell me what a piece of shit I was and how I, was destined to hell just because of who I am and what I've done. But she didn't. She supported, and it just, I don't know, it threw everything off upstairs. Like this isn't what's supposed to be going on.
Did you suffer from anything as a because I see so much of myself in you.
Yeah.
Did you I grew up very achievement oriented. I got a grounded for an 88 in geometry once.
Amen.
And so anything less than perfect is kind of unforgivable in our own minds. And it's
Exactly.
hard to accept grace from other people
For sure.
because we don't give it to ourselves. And so I was wondering if you had a little bit of that in your upbringing and always praised for achievement and this and that. And
Yeah.
therefore we give ourselves kind of a life sentence that we don't want to serve and figure, fuck it. I'm burdening. I'm not adding any value. And if you're a person of service, like you are, I am, why we do what we do, then yeah, less than perfect. Fuck it. I don't deserve to be here. I'm burdening everyone.
Amen.
And yeah,
And it was never was that like a part of a sense of my upbringing. Like I wasn't in that family where it's like my parents didn't love me unless I succeeded. Like it
right.
wasn't that, but it was self-induced. Like I realized when I did great, when I became, the best player maybe on the team, like it was you get that praise, you get that
Yeah.
attention. You get the good grades, you get all it, and then you see the things that you want start coming to you. So for me, it was like, yes, I have to be the best at everything. Like I cannot not succeed. Um, so yes, 100% right. And I remember when I was, I don't know, somewhere maybe in my mid 20s and low 20s, one of my cousins, we were at a birthday party, and I said something that I was excited about some success I'm having. And I said, and it's surprising. And she said, it's not surprising to me. You're the golden child. And she didn't mean anything by it. It was a compliment. But
Right.
what I heard was reinforcement of that belief in my head that I can't fuck up. Like, I have to be the best. Like, this is how my family views me. It confirms my belief in my head that I have to be the best at everything. And yeah, 100%. That was what drove me to go to grad school. That was what
Yeah.
drove me
It's
to.
the self-imposed excellence because I did like a solo unfiltered Friday one time and I said, I don't know where this self-imposed you need to be excellence comes from. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think my parents ever told me like you need to be this. If anything, being a premature little kid with asthma, it was like you're never going to be like everybody else. You can't do this, you can't do that. And so, but nobody ever told me I had to be perfect. And, I
Yeah.
always look back and while my parents' actions showed me they love me, I'm certain they were proud of my accomplishments, but my mind took it as I need to accomplish things to be loved. And therefore, when you fuck up or you do something out of character, that you can't be forgiven.
Yeah.
And that disappointment from another person. And even though they're willing to forgive us, we don't want to forgive ourselves. And it's like,
Yeah.
where does this self-imposed excellence comes from? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah. It's so true. And it's such a twisted fate in a sense
Because you would
because
never,
that
you would
excellence.
never do that to, like your cousin who calls you the golden child.
Yeah.
Because I have uh, all cousins were only children, and like some of the parents have lost kids after, but we all ended up like we're single cousins, and I guess I'm the golden child cousin, the one who went to grad school, the one who's done all this and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I am deeply flawed.
Yeah, me too. The most flawed, but it's such a twisted fate that we put ourselves into because that same drive of excellence brought us
Hmm.
the success that we wanted. That only reinforces the fact that I'm doing what's right. Like this is what has to be done. This is the mindset I have to be successful. And then that twistedly only makes it more fucked up when we do screw up because it just kills us inside because we can't do that. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't make these mistakes. I'm supposed to be the best.
Mm. So what happens? You go over there. She shows you love that
Yeah.
you never felt before. And what are the next steps? What happens after that?
Next steps is boy interesting. I find out shortly thereafter that indeed she did go to the police. Charges are going to be filed. I'm going to be arrested, so on and so forth. So now, Mister Top 30 most successful under 30, all these stupid awards you got, best PT, best business, blah, 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 blah. All of that goes down the drain. And now you're Jake Strain, the felon. Um, that reality hadn't sunk in yet, but I knew that the more I could get in front of it, I thought the better it would be. So I talked to my parents, told them what was going on, and my dad was a county commissioner at the time. So he's like, look, I think we just set a meeting with the DA. You go and turn yourself in, tell them what happened, before the arrest happened, so on and so forth. This was a Friday night, so Saturday and Sunday, that couldn't happen. DA is
Right.
not exactly in his office on Sunday afternoon. So I talked to a couple of people around town. I won't drop names or titles, but asking, what are your thoughts on this? And I said, because I want to go to treatment now. Like, finally, this monkey is off my back. Like, I don't have to keep this secret anymore. I go to my parents' house, and when I'm telling this, I receive that same love and acceptance, which is completely fucking with my head because, again, like, I screwed up, like, really, really bad, like a few hours ago. I shouldn't be loved like this, but it was so welcoming, like to be still loved, and it just kind of again it screwed with my
But
head.
isn't
But
the weird thing is that like if somebody came to you and said like what you were saying to them, given the type of person you are, you would probably be show the same love and grace,
100%.
you know, because that's why we got in the field. But yet it feels so foreign and unrequited, kind of undeserved when somebody else does it to us.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the, I don't want to say pedestal because I'm sure you were a lot like I was. I didn't put myself on the same pedestal everybody else put me on.
No.
I still felt like I was a failure. But this pedestal of excellence that I had to maintain, that excellence includes grace, includes mercy. If somebody would have stole the meds from me and came back and told me, we're good, like, what can I do to help? That would have been my response,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Let's
100%.
help. Let's fix it. Like, let's
Right.
address the root problem. I'm
Right.
happy you did this, and now that it's out, how can I be of service to you?
Yeah, 100%. But that's them. That's
Right.
that's not me. Like I can't make those mistakes. I'm not allowed. The success that I have forced myself to have in life was because of the high excellent standard that I held for myself. And that doesn't allow for public
Well,
mistakes.
the other thing, what was interesting today, I don't know if I wrote this in my journal, a thought, um, but um, I was thinking one of the reasons, like, kind of like suicidal ideation, fuck it, take myself out because I'm a burden.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons from a male point of view, when like I was in the military, I played team sports. I mean, you team sports, if you suck, if you're not on, they take you out, bench you, and they
Yeah.
put in the person who can help win the game because it's ultimately about the team winning
Performance.
the game. And you're like, man, if
Yeah.
I'm fucking up and I'm not on, yes, bench me and put the person in so we as a team can win. And so
Yeah.
I don't think that um, it kind of does the male psyche any favors because I was in the military too, and it's very much like that. And I worked in a level 1 trauma center, and it's um, you're required to be on and well, and if you're not, then they're gonna push you out or you self-select out because you're kind of hurting the team.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of mindset leads us as men to look to taking our own selves out. It seems almost like a logical solution for us, where other people are like, "You're fucking crazy. Like that makes no sense." I'm like,
Yeah.
no, but it makes perfect sense to me. If I'm burdening the team or the family unit or whatever it is, clearly, I mean, if somebody sucks, they bring up the second string and, hey,
Yeah. 100%.
how it
But I
works.
don't think I can. I think that definitely is a part of it. I truly do. But I can't take out the selfish motives behind it either. I don't want
Yeah.
to feel this pain.
Yeah.
I don't, I've gone through withdrawal before. It's not fun.
Sucks.
It's not pleasant. The fear of withdrawal is always worse than the withdrawal itself.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah,
that
I've had my episodes with opiates and everything as well. So, yeah.
yeah. So that what this is going to be like when you come off, and you have such a fear inside of you of that moment that's what drives you to keep taking them. And yeah, when you got to that point where it was like, I know what's coming, and I know I probably just lost everything in life that I've worked for the last 10 years, and I'm a burden to anybody that has anything to do with me. Why in the hell do I need to be here?
So what happens when after the weekend, you said the weekend DA's not going to be there, so
Yeah.
we're not going to do it then. How does it progress from there? Because you're wanting to go to
Progresses.
treatment.
Progresses. I'm in Aurora, Colorado in treatment by Sunday. No, hell, that's a lie. That I stole the meds on Friday night. By Saturday night, I was in Denver, Colorado in treatment. I never got to talk to the DA. I wrote him a letter that I think it was my dad, took it up there to him
Hmm.
and told him what happened. Um, and then I was completely immersed in treatment for 30 days.
So it's kind of like you're like, I'm going to go to treatment, write the letter, because the DA has the discretion. They could be like, okay, we can just wait till you're done with treatment and handle this when
Yeah,
you come back with all the charges and whatnot.
yeah,
As
that was
opposed to like running the risk of DTing in a jail cell while you're
right.
waiting.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that part didn't cross my mind. What did cross my mind the entire time, and the only thing that was on the forefront of my mind, wasn't the felonies. It was, finally I get to get help. Finally, I can do what I've been talking to my girlfriend about for so long. Like, and get from where she was to where she is now. I get that. Like, I finally get to get help. So I was a kid at Christmas.
How
Like,
did
I
you
was
come?
so
How did you come to? How did you find the treatment center? How did that all get arranged? And why Colorado and all that?
9 phone calls. I called every location that Google would show me, and that was the first one that could accept me that day. So yeah, I called all in Oklahoma, called in Texas, called in Kansas. Ended up on a call for I don't remember the name of the company now, but they had a location in Oklahoma City. They said, I can't get you in here, but I can probably get you in Denver. They
Hmm.
said, it's done. Sign me up. When can you get me in? They said, can you be here by 9 p.m.? 100%. I'll be there. So
How was that? How was it walking in there? I mean, other than you're ready, you kind of know what's coming.
yeah, again, I was a kid at Christmas. Like, I was so sick of being an addict. I was so sick of living on those pills, living for those pills, that I just wanted off of them. And I didn't know, when you asked me earlier, when did I find out I needed the mental part? That was from talking to my girlfriend. She went to treatment, and she talks about how it's not about the food, it's not about the weight, it's about in a sense, the control and what's going on up here. And I was like,
Hmm.
holy shit, like, that's true. Like, this is where the problem is. It's not the pills, it's what caused me to need the pills. So that was like, yes. So when I made the screw ups and I made all those mistakes, and I talked to my parents, Dad's like, well, you can just do this, on an outpatient basis and keep working and do all this stuff. And I said, no, I
No.
can't. I need treatment. Like, I need to be I need to be cut off from the world. I need opiate boot camp. Like, that's what I need. And that was what I was determined to get.
It's almost like
Um,
going back to school, like a full
yeah,
curriculum, a full load. Like you need to be immersed in all of it. Like your
yeah,
physical therapy school. You need
for
the
sure.
cadavers, you need the books, you need it all.
Yeah. I needed the NPs. I needed the counselors. I needed the BHTs. I need everybody that was in that facility to get me off of this and get me through this program, give me this degree. So walking in there, of course, there's the fear of the unknown. I
Right.
knew as much as I knew from what she had told me about her treatment, but I didn't know what to expect. All I knew is the first few days were going to be hell on earth, getting off these pills, especially 260 milligrams worth. Like, it's
And
going to suck.
how did that go? Did they do any medically assisted, or was it just a straight cold turkey? How was that?
They have to cold turkey you in the beginning. If not, they'll put you into precipitated withdrawals if they start you on a different medication immediately. They have to get the drugs out of your system. So for the first, I don't even remember, 4 or 5 days, maybe, like, it was just get through it. I'll tell you, I remember 2 instances that are like flashes. The rest of it, I don't recall much. Uh, I remember, for some reason, I broke out in hives. Like, it was like my body was just trying to figure out what the hell was going on after 17 years on opiates. It's trying to do anything it can to fix it. Um, so I remember it just all over my body, just red. And then I remember talking to my girlfriend on the phone, which wasn't allowed to happen, but there was an issue at the house. So she called the facility. They're like, hey, he's right here. Let me just let you talk to him.
Hmm.
So I talked to her, and then I just remember flashes here and there, but those are the only two, like, solid memories I have. But I
Do
went to
they
class one.
do they are you doing when they do this like cold turkey withdrawal detox thing? Is that a do you just like stay in a room in a bed the whole time, or are you watching TV, or are you required to do activities, or do
Yeah,
you go for walks, take hot showers, or do they have
yeah.
anything that kind of helps you, or do they kind of guide you through it?
Um, yes and no.
Mhm.
So really, what it is get through it. They're going to give you some medications to help. Whatever the symptoms you may be feeling. If it's diarrhea,
Right,
take an antidiarrheal. If it's anxiety, take a clonidine or something. They're not going to give you anything that's controlled, obviously,
right.
but they're going to give you things that help here and there. But yes, for most of the people there, it was, go in your room, sleep, rest, do whatever you need to do. For me, that was the absolute worst. Don't put me alone with myself in my own head. Like, I'm going to be bouncing off these walls, going crazy. So I needed something to do. So I started going to class day one. They're like, you don't need to be here. It's not required. And I
Hmm.
said, I need it. Like I can't be in my room by myself. I'm going to talk myself out of it, go crazy, something. Like I need something to keep my mind busy. So yeah, for me, getting through it was starting in the classes, go to the groups, start learning now. Uh, but no, as far as the protocols, it's, depending on the drug, speaking from what I do now, but there for the opiates, it was, you're going to see the nurse, you're going to get your Q4 vitals
Yeah.
every 4 hours. They're going to, check and make sure that you're doing okay. And then give you any kind of the assisted meds that you need along the way. And then once it's clear that the drugs are out of your system and you can start, then yeah, you can get on a medication assisted program, which I did, which is the buprenorphine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. That was like you start on the buprenorphine and all of a sudden all those symptoms that you've been suffering for the last 5 days are gone in an instant. Anybody that is coming off of opiates that does not, and this is my opinion, this is opinion of Jake Strand, that is not doing a medication assisted program with it is doing themselves a disservice. Like you're putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage. You're fighting a war single-handedly, pretty much. You're going to a gunfight with a sword. You don't have to. Like there's other ways to do it. But yeah, that gave me the clarity that I needed, where I didn't have to focus on the pain and I could focus on the treatment. And yeah, that was a lifesaver.
Because how does that work? So you're withdrawing, you're feeling the symptoms, and then when do they normally, for people who are withdrawing off of opiates, when do they normally introduce the what was it? Is it Suboxone?
Buprenorphine. Suboxone
Okay.
is the brand name. But yeah, I would say it's usually going to be around day 2 or 3. So
what does that do? How does that
So it binds to the opiate receptors, but buprenorphine also has naloxone in it. So you cannot overdose. So if I'm getting, say, 4 milligrams of Suboxone, and in my addict brain, more is better, right? So why take 4 when I can take 34? But if you take 34 instead of 4, you're still only going to get 4 milligrams because the naloxone blocks the rest of it. So you cannot overdose on it. So that's why it's the go-to treatment, because as opiate addicts, we want more. We want to chase that feeling again. But you can't get it with it. Not at the level that we could before.
So what is it? Is it just, does it give you the same impact like if it was a Norco or something? So it's going to give you the same effect, the same feel, only it's a stabilized amount.
Yeah, it is an opiate, but it's not as severe as an opiate. It's
Okay.
not, you're still going to have to taper off. You're still going to have to, come off it the right way. But it's the main thing is it is controlled. Like when they would give me 10 milligrams of oxycodone, I would take 3. It said take 1 every 4 or 6 hours. I would take 3 every 4 hours. With Suboxone, it's not going to matter. Like you're going to get the dose, and you're getting out of the habit of popping pills every 4 hours. You take 1 strip, you put it under your tongue, and it's good. Like the half-life in it, I don't want to lie to you, but I think it's something like 36 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's a long-lasting med. You can take 1 a day, and you're good. And it just gets you out of the habit of needing it.
Yeah.
So there's tons of benefits to it, for sure. But, yeah, usually it's going to be implemented around, I would probably say day 3.
And so once you get on that kind of helps, and then you start classing kind of routine, get into some sort of protocol. And what kind of what exactly what kind of things do they address in that? I know they're going to look in and go, why do you think you need this in the first place?
Yeah.
But do they do nutrition, anything else? What kind of classes besides behavioral?
Yeah, I mean, there's, you're going to get some nutrition, but they're also going to give you the science of addiction, telling you how it works, what you've been doing to yourself, what it's causing, why you're feeling the way you are, why you ended up where you are, in a sense, in the science behind that. They're going to do relapse prevention training. They're going to do, then these are all in the groups, seeking safety groups. But then on top of that, of the 4 groups a day, then you're going to have the individual counseling a week. And that individual counseling is where they're going to do the deep dive, and they're going to find out what in the hell led you to this place to begin with. What was it that the pills satisfied? What hole did they fill in you that gave you the need to stay on them? And when you can find that underlying root, it's a hell of a lot easier to address. For me, I thought it was just always about the pills. I need to be off of them. Now I'm off of them, but it never fixed what the pills were giving me. So that's why that year off of them was so miserable for me, because I didn't address that part of it.
Yeah. And what did because it's interesting. I think sometimes we think about, so I'm 49 and I had quit drinking like over 2 years and then I had like what I would call a little mini meltdown in
Yeah,
front of my daughter. And that was embarrassing, shameful. It scared her a little.
sure.
And I couldn't blame it on the alcohol. And so then I had to start going, well, okay, what is it? And then I started kind of therapy, and through a series of different things, I was able to recognize that, um, you know, I was in a bus that ran over a girl when she was 7 years old, the girl that sat in front of me in class. Um, and we had to sit there while this, whatever it was. But
Jesus.
I kind of, I guess I never assigned meaning to it, or I knew I've always gotten in trouble with my mouth for telling the truth. And
Yes.
a lot of it though is because I had a healthy distrust for adults and authority because of that incident, because they never addressed it. Nobody ever put together that I got in trouble that year. I got in a fight that year. And then the next year I started Little League football and martial arts. So all my aggression was normal and I was a high performer. So there's no reason to ever ask, is he okay?
Yeah.
So for me, it was like something that happened 42 years ago. I would have never thought had been pulling the strings like a damn puppet master, but
Yeah.
nobody there to explain mortality to a 7-year old.
Yeah.
And then nobody talk about it. And you have this fear of death or, I had to ask myself, have I been dodging death my entire life or living life,
Yeah.
what what attracted me to being in a level one trauma center and seeing death often and frequent. Um, this kind of mentality of, I guess if you're on this side of the equation, maybe you won't have to be on that side of the equation.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
it goes deep, and
It
it's
does.
still a work in progress because I mean this has only been like 8 weeks that I figured this out. But
Yeah.
that caused me to go to therapy, that little mini meltdown, and kind of through therapy and um, learning about 0 to 25, some of your most impressionable years, and singling out, going, oh, that little thing when you were 7 years old was never addressed, or
Yeah.
I thought it was, or I kind of just thought it was no
Right.
deal. But yeah,
Yeah. And
what did
it's like you said, it's a deep dive, but it's not a dive that you could ever take or figure out on your own.
Nah, it's taken
Never.
forever. And then of course too, the other part is you think you're gonna you figure it out and you think that everything automatically gets better and it doesn't. And then I
Yeah.
had my first panic attack shortly after discovering that. And then I realized, oh, your body probably went into fight or flight that day, not knowing what was going on. And that's, having that kind of fight or flight, hyper awareness, hyper anxiety. You go in the military, you work in trauma centers, and um, you just become very aware and you operate at a heightened state. And I was listening to some podcast was like, no, your nervous system is out of whack. And then I had a panic attack and I started putting it all together and went to my PCP of the clinic I used to manage. And when I was explaining it to her, I had to get out of my chair because I was pacing around the exam room because I was like breaking down as I was talking about it.
For sure.
And then I had to get on medication and I didn't really want to because like in the couple of years I stopped drinking, I lost 64 pounds, went from 9 prescriptions to one,
Yeah.
and all this kind of more holistic approach. And, you know, I don't want to take medicine. I don't want to be dependent on medicine.
Yeah.
Um, And so I was like, she's like, well, we can try one that takes 6 weeks. And I was like, or we could try, I was like, Xanax is quick acting, but I kind of don't want to take it because I know it's addictive and this and that, the other. But I know my system needs to unwind. And then you get into this whole like, I don't want to take medication,
Yeah.
but you kind of need to. And then I wear a whoop, and you
Yeah.
can see when you take the medication as needed on your recovery scores, what it does to your body, how anxious or ready your body is.
Yeah.
And, but it's still a work in progress. But yeah, what did you figure out? If you had a good Andy of Mayberry kind of upbringing and just a
Yeah.
little bit of social anxiety, what did peeling back the layers, what was kind of your root cause?
A mixture of the two things that I already mentioned. The social anxiety part, it allowed me to be who I needed to be. And it's funny when you're in an addiction, you contribute all the success that you're having to the addiction. Like my business success was because I could be who I needed to be on the pills. My sports success was because I could be relaxed enough that I could perform like I needed to perform while I was on the pills. If I screwed up, that's Jake's fault. But the success is all contributed to the drugs. And that just builds up the need even more, in your own head. But yeah, peeling back the layers was definitely, it was the social anxiety part of it, but it was also what we talked about, me, the self-induced pressure to excel,
Mm-hmm.
that I could fail. Like I'm not allowed to make a mistake. I'm not allowed to screw up. I need to achieve at the highest level in everything that I do. Um, those were the two biggest motivating factors. They always, doing the A scores and trying to, see what trauma was there. And,
Right,
there wasn't a lot for me.
right.
My parents were great parents. Were they perfect? No, but they were, in my opinion, they were perfect parents. Like they did a great job. They ended up with a hell of a son, unfortunately for them, but with a bunch of problems. But they did their part.
Right.
But there wasn't, the abuse. There wasn't the, you know, split homes.
Yeah.
There wasn't an addiction problem in my immediate family. Like none of the stuff that contributes a lot of times to those, the ACE scores, high ACE scores, I didn't have. Um, the only point that I got was, have you ever been, I think it was physically abused, but when they said that, I was like, okay, well, what does that qualify? Well, did they ever hit you? I said, no, they never hit me. They said, well, did they spank you? Yes, they definitely
Hmm.
did that. Well, that qualifies. Well, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, not really. I'm not a physician. I'm not a counselor. Whether that qualifies or doesn't qualify, that's not up to me. But in my mind, I probably deserved
Right.
99% of those spankings that they gave me. So that for me was discipline, and that wasn't an everyday thing. That was when I needed it. It was when
Yeah.
I needed redirection. Um, so they wasn't for me. It wasn't the trauma in my past. It was all just the self-induced stuff that just threw me down such a dark spiral, dark hole. And those pills pulled me out of that hole. And then it was just a snowball effect from there.
So what happens after treatment? When do you start kind of feeling good? Like maybe 3 weeks in, or at the end of 30 days? Did you only do 30 days, or did you opt to stay in? Some people extend and do 60, 90, even a year.
Yeah.
Um, and when did you notice you were starting to feel good and kind of okay moving forward? And then kind of what happened after when it was time to start facing the music?
Sure. So around let's say day 5, I don't remember the exact day, but when they put me on the medication assisted program, that was when I started feeling like, okay, I got this. And they started me at, I think it was 12 milligrams. And
Hmm.
then in 2 days, I'm like, okay, let's drop it down. And then let's drop it. And then 10 days later, I was down to only 2 milligrams a day, which was the smallest dose that they could give. And I felt great. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So then it's like, okay, well, I'm good. Like I can stop this medication and be good. Stop it. Nope. 17 years of addiction didn't cure in 10 days. So that was a wall for me mentally. It was like, shit, I thought I was doing so well. And then you like
Well,
call it failure again.
that's that high achievement shit.
Yes.
that we do to ourselves. We want everything. We think we're, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and they all laugh. I'm in tears because I failed. You know,
Yeah.
I'm beating myself up, and they're laughing like, "What did you expect? You were taking, you know, a horse's dose of oxycodone, and you think it's going to be cured in 10 days?" And well, it's like, well, logically, but I'm not logic. Like I'm supposed to be the outlier.
I know, right?
But yeah, so I was feeling good, and I stayed on that 2 milligrams, but I went through the 30 days. The problem that I had, and it's a struggle that anybody has when they go through treatment, is that there is a necessity to be cut off from the outside world. You need to be focused on your treatment when you're in treatment. And there's so many distractions out there that's going to get you away from that. That's why most of the treatment centers, when you're in there, you don't have your cell phone. You're not calling people every day. You know, you get one phone call a week. And for me, my life just got flipped upside down like most of the addicts. You know, I caused so much trouble in my life right before I came here. And it's like, in my head, I'm like, am I going to leave here and go to prison? Like,
Right.
you know, I have no idea what's going on, you know, and I can't find out from anybody. I get these 15-minute phone calls that are monitored by the counselors. So when I ask, you know, they're telling me everything that they know, but as you probably know, the legal system doesn't move rapidly. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have charges put against me. That was in December of 2022. I didn't have charges actually placed against me until May of 2023.
Wow.
And I wasn't prosecuted until May of 2024. Like it took almost 2 years to finally get to that point, and it never should have, which is a whole nother story. But to answer your question, I got out in the 30 days, and then I left. I wrote a letter to my partner that told him that I was an addict. I'm going to treatment. I'm sorry, I won't be there. I didn't tell him that I stole the meds. In my mind, I'm doing damage reduction here. Like,
Right.
maybe there aren't charges filed. Maybe it's going to be a deferred prosecution. Maybe all of this goes away, you know, and I don't have to live the nightmare that I know is inevitable in my future. So I didn't tell him about that part. He found out because it went viral. When I get out, I'm getting, you know, texts and stuff from people in California that are seeing. I'm the worst thief alive. I got caught on video. So the video went viral of this physical therapist in Oklahoma stealing meds from, it says stealing from patient. She was a previous patient. But regardless, you know, that's what the headline was. So now this successful physical therapist stealing meds, this becomes a hot story. So now I'm on the news in Amarillo, Texas. I'm on the news in Oklahoma City. I'm on the news in Tulsa. You know, I'm everywhere. And my stupid video of me stealing has gone viral. This becomes a more high profile case, or let me rephrase that. In a small town, it becomes the high profile case. The judge had a relationship with my dad because, not the judge, excuse me, the district attorney.
Yeah.
And that caused him to recuse himself. So when he recused himself, the Oklahoma, I don't know if it's the attorney general, assigns it to a different location. So they assigned it to a different county, and then that DA became the prosecuting attorney. That ended up being my downfall. Like, it was a perfect storm that ended, I would say, a way worse than it should have, but it was better than it could have been too. Like, this was the first crime. You know, I have nothing on my record up to this point, but she was determined to send me to jail and determined for me to get, you know, time and get, you know, these 2 felonies prosecuted. Every other district attorney that we had talked to across the state said, this is a deferred prosecution case. Like, you stole the meds, you went and got help, you took care of the problem, you even took the meds back.
Right.
The lady that I stole the meds from was out for blood. She wanted me to get my license revoked. She wanted me to go to prison. She was out for blood, still probably out for blood. So the combination of her she called the attorney general multiple times in Oklahoma saying that this guy needs to be in prison. So now the district attorney, who's up for re-election this year, she doesn't want to let the successful white male go. So I'm determined to prove that I come down on everybody, even the successful people. So there goes any leniency. And it just turned into this big deal, where the media is in the courtroom. And
Yeah.
Finally, in May of 2024, we get a plea agreement that if I will plead whatever it was I needed to plead, guilty, no contest, I don't know what it was, but that they'll avoid the jail time, they'll get rid of one of the felonies, keep the other felony, and it'll be a deferred sentencing. So I'm on probation for 7 years. If I don't screw up in those 7 years, all of this goes away and is off of my record. The one caveat was you can't practice. She wanted me to lose my license. Well, I didn't necessarily want to lose my license, but I didn't want to go to jail either. So the way it was written up is that if I would surrender my license, which in Oklahoma, I had already let it expire by that time. I was living in Texas.
Yeah.
Well, they only cared about my Oklahoma license. So moving forward, they don't want me practicing in Oklahoma. I don't care. I live in Texas. I'm licensed to practice in Texas. I had to go through fighting all the medical boards because we were in 3 states. Oklahoma,
I'm in
Kansas,
Texas.
Yeah, there you go. But that was a whole nother thing. So just the battle afterwards, you can see how it's so easy for people to relapse.
Yeah.
When you have thousands and thousands of dollars of legal bills from the legal trouble, from fighting the Kansas Medical Board, from fighting the Texas Medical Board, fighting the Oklahoma Medical Board, having all those different things, like it just piles up so quickly that it drags everything out of you. Like my wife and I, God bless her, I don't know why she stayed with me through all this, but we lived in a state of fear for a year and a half. I didn't want to go get the mail because I was afraid what I was going to see in it. I didn't want to answer a phone from a number that wasn't mine, but it was just the fear of what's next. Like every time we get through one hurdle, there's 10 more in front of us now. And it was just such a battle. But yeah, I got out. My partner, ended up in a legal battle with him because he decided that I couldn't be a partner anymore, and then just decided to cut me out of the business. There's a whole another long story behind that.
Yeah, well, because technically you're part owner and you took out a loan and paid that loan back. So there's something there.
Right. So it's still half my company, but
right.
He said, now it's not. We can't just take that away. But he
right.
thought he could. So anyway, that all snowballed. So at that point, it's like, well, I can't practice here. I have a non-compete with this guy. So, I don't really want to be here now anyway. Like it's a town that I grew up in. It's a town that I love. But at the same time, I've never been anywhere but here except when I was in treatment. Or when I was in PT school. So I talked to Danielle, my wife now, and like, let's just go. Like there's nothing tying us here. So we moved to Tyler, Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm in Bullard.
Really? We should have done this in person. Yeah.
We'll have to set up a second one. So I guess I probably drove past your location while I was doing Uber Eats.
Guaranteed. Was it on Gentry in Tyler?
I think so.
Yeah, swing by, my friend. You're welcome anytime.
Man, that is wild. So y'all moved to
practice home health here for about 6 months. Then while I'm practicing home health, have a good thing going.
Now with you're doing PT home health?
Yep. The lady that I had stolen the meds from contacted the Texas Medical Board because at this time charges still hadn't been filed.
Yeah.
She contacts the Texas Medical Board and said, why'd you give this man a license? He's a thief. He's a so on and so forth. Well, during the licensing application, I talked to my lawyer. I'm like, what do I put here? Like, were you an addict? Yes, 100%. Opiates. I went to treatment. I put all that stuff on there. Have you been charged or convicted of any felonies? No. Like at this time, I'm 5 months out or whatever it is, 4 months out. I haven't. Like there are no charges. There may never be charges. It may be a deferred prosecution and nothing ever comes of this.
Right.
So he said, no, you can't lie and say that there's charges when there's not. So put no. Well, then she sends that letter. Now the Texas Medical Board feels like I pulled one over on them. And that was never the intention, but that's what they felt like. So now they're coming after me. And I get a letter that says, you can't practice, surrender your license in 3 days. Well, shit, now how am I supposed to provide for my family? How am I, and it just, this whole thing comes crashing down again, and it was just something else to fight. But hired an attorney. He got it, pushed back. Where I didn't have to surrender. I did have to stop practicing immediately. So then it was like, well, hell, I don't know what I'm going to do. I started looking for gigs at Walmart.
Yeah. Oh, I
Maybe
know.
be a greeter or something.
I was laid off during the pandemic. I used to manage two of the Christus facilities, two of the ambulatory centers, and
Yeah. So that fear of
I
like,
applied for like 300 jobs in like the 2022, 2023 type era, and it was brutal. I think like they offered me a job to if I would move to Beeville and run the Garza unit. And I was like, my daughter goes to an art school here and
yeah,
that goes through eighth grade. And I was like, they just didn't have that when I was growing up. And I'm like, I'm not taking her out of a fucking art school to move to BFE, Texas, to manage the intake unit
yeah,
of all the Texas prison system
yeah,
for less money than I was making when I got laid off. And so I was like, I'll just Uber. And so my wife and I, my dad, who's a veteran and goes to the VA, he receives home health. And my wife was like a patient care technician, medical assistant,
yeah,
telemonitor at Seton when we lived in Austin on a med surge floor.
yeah,
And, we were doing kind of home health, like people who have 9 hours a week. She would take this 97-year-old veteran shopping, clean his house, do this and that, the other. He ended up in rehab for bursitis, and they did a surgery on his elbow, but they didn't ambulate him enough. He couldn't walk. His daughter in Dallas wanted to send him to assisted living. He asked us to move in with him, and we lived with him for 3.5 months until he passed. It was actually October 12th, so I just did like an anniversary episode remembering him.
yeah. Nice.
Um, and we lived with him for 3.5 months, so I would be there for all his OT, PT, and et
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera. And so, because I'm kind of in this spot when I was talking about starting something entrepreneurial,
yeah,
it's wanting to fill in not necessarily the medical pieces of that kind of stuff, but the humanity piece of elders who don't have anyone, where the only solution is stick them in a nursing home or whatever, but
yeah,
essentially where people don't have to die alone.
yeah,
And so I'm trying to. I got a meeting with my business coach tomorrow, and I got a slide deck to pitch and all business
yeah,
concept and all that shit. But you know, kind of, like you said, what do you look for? I mean, there was a place. It's still over there off of Beckham, but it's one of those, where you go, they send their people to take the piss test and all that. Like I applied for
yeah.
one of those and had a interview there, but they chose somebody else, and less than a year later they're rehiring. I'm like, you should have just fucking hired me. But my thing is I'm not like necessarily thrilled to step back into um, big healthcare America
Yeah.
just yet. I have some coaching certificates and stuff like that. But yeah, so you end up there. How did you? So you can't practice PT. So I'm curious how you ended up in this and what you're doing and how you like it and what are we seeing as
Yeah,
kind of some of the current trends and problems as it relates to what are people coming in from for
sure,
and then the access related to it. So how'd you
sure.
get into Cenikor?
Um, when I got out of treatment, I'll backtrack. When I was in treatment, I
Uh-huh.
was like, this is maybe the most fulfilling work I could ever see. Like,
So you were gonna look at getting one of the certificates like the drug and alcohol treatment certification type of thing?
well, I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew in physical therapy it was fulfilling work. It
Right?
could help people get their quality of life back, their function back. But in treatment, I'm seeing people get their lives back, getting a second life back, like returning children to their parents. And, just I knew somehow I wanted to get into that. I had no experience in that. So I didn't know how on earth that was going to happen, if it was going to happen. But like I said, the Lord has a plan if you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to surrender and listen. And in treatment, I certainly did that. Hit my knees to where like I have nothing else. Like, and that weight was pulled off. Been on that journey ever since. But when I got the letter, I was like, I need to from the state board saying I need to
Yeah.
stop. I knew I needed to find something. Well, that whole time I'd been looking around to see if there was any openings in a treatment center that maybe my history could fulfill. Um, Lo and behold, as soon as I get that letter, this position's open up at Cenikor for facility director. It'd be the director of the Cenikor location. Um, do I know at this time the ins and outs of a treatment center? No.
No.
But what I do know out of my experience is I know how to run a business.
Right.
I know how to make money in a business. I know how to deal with the commercial insurances. All of those things, experiences that I had. I know how to get commercial referrals, all the things that are needed to make a place like this successful. So I thought, well, maybe I'll have a chance. So I applied. 2 weeks later, and 2 interviews later with the executive staff, I got a call and they offered me the job. I, thank you. It's such an honor. I appreciate the opportunity. They didn't know that this was a life-saving event for me. So we get off the phone. I immediately just start crying. My wife, she's emotional. We're hugging each other. I miss a call because they forgot to tell me something because I'm just in tears. Like, this is salvation. Like, the Lord provided
Yeah.
what I needed in that moment. So finally I called her back and I said, I'm sorry. I told her why, but it was just that's the only thing. It was deliverance. Like, the Lord just gave me something that I needed. And I came here, and this is where I should have been for the last 20 years of my life, 15 years of my life. This is my calling. We are a substance use treatment facility, 32 beds here in Tyler. We have all levels of care: detox, short-term residential, partial
You do
hospital.
outpatient as well?
Yep, supportive outpatient and intensive outpatient. We have RSS, recovery support services. We have everything. But these are my people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's something that
You can actually, there's that thing when you so I'm a people person, and I naturally, you kind of want to move up to director and all that kind of stuff,
yeah,
and as you progress in your career, but that truthfully, the further you get, the further away you get from whatever brought you to that, which is the interaction with the people.
yep,
And, you having that lived experience, there's a total difference of a facility director or CEO, C suite person, director of anything who maybe they know their employees' names and some of the patients, and they just kind of know by the spreadsheet or the tracking board.
yeah.
But then there's a difference of the person who can actually, even as the director, you could walk into a patient's room and understand them,
I get
and
it, bro. Like,
empathy, and
yeah,
really not you you don't go in there and come across as I'm better than you, or I have
yeah,
something you don't. No,
yeah.
I am you, and my circumstances just led me here, and I'm grateful that I can be a part of returning this back to you. But I
Amen.
get it.
Yeah. That is the magic of a treatment center and the magic of, I think, AA and NA. When you get around people who have the same life experiences, in a sense, the same struggles that you have, you don't feel alone anymore. When you're in your addiction, you feel like you're the only one in the world who's going through this. You're isolating, you're away from everybody. But now I'm in this treatment center with another 30 people, and they're all in the same boat I am. And it's like, holy crap, it's just, now it's, well, if this person can do it, I can do it. You
Yeah.
get that magic that comes from that. And there's definitely a benefit of working in a treatment facility, having gone through that. 90% of my staff here are in recovery. And because of that reason, like, it's so hard for people to understand if they don't have a lived experience in it. And I don't think it has to be personal. My clinical manager here, I hope I'm not giving out too much information, but she was married to an alcoholic of
Hmm.
30 years that died of alcohol abuse. So that's lived experience. When
Yeah.
you are living in the same household with somebody going through it, you know what it looks like. You
I
know,
come
you
from a family of addicts and outlaws on both sides
yeah,
of my white side, my Mexican side. Um, and what I had realized when I said I had a nervous system problem, well, you had two families that all had nervous system issues, regulation issues, and all tried to, one side was Vicodin and alcohol, the other side was heroin and alcohol.
yeah, they knew how to
uh,
fix it.
yeah, and so it's just been, and you grow up seeing that, and even though they're trying to shield you from that,
Yeah,
you pick up on it, and at some point, you know, like I can remember in my 20s, some guy giving me like a Vicodin, and I was like, I
yeah,
couldn't sleep, my head was spinning. I was working in kitchens at the time,
yeah,
and I was like, oh, I don't like that. But then I went through a period where I was addicted to opiates,
yeah.
and yeah, coming off of it is dog shit. It sucks.
Not fun. No. It is
No,
not.
but the good thing is, unlike alcohol, Xanax, and some of those things that will kill you,
Yeah,
um, not coming off correctly. But what are you? I know some things are regional dependent, but access to drugs and things that you used to only see in big cities, because Tyler has grown quite a bit
for sure.
since me growing up here, and we came back in 2015 from Austin, and my wife's from the Woodlands, so lots
Yeah,
of big town stuff. But as if you're in any sort of the game or you watch any sort of television,
yep.
traffic with Mariana Van Zeller, I mean, cartels, um, illicit drugs, they're making their way everywhere. So, what are we kind of seeing in the East Texas
Yeah.
area? Is there anything predominant like alcohol, meth,
Yep.
opiates, heroin?
Boy,
What
you
kind
nailed
of?
it there, brother. The top three that we see here in Tyler: alcohol one, meth two, opiates three.
Okay.
Uh, as far as the struggles that we have, we're alcohol to me is always going to be one of the most challenging things to come off of. One, because like you said, when you detox off of it, it can kill you.
Yeah.
Uh, but two, is it's so socially acceptable and almost socially expected at times. When you go out with your friends, what are you expected to have?
Well,
When you walk,
forever Tyler was dry. I mean, when I was a kid, like you had to
really,
go to Coffee City to actually get any alcohol, and it
wow,
wasn't until it's pretty recent, I would say 10 years or less, that
yeah,
they've actually started even selling beer and wine within Tyler city limits.
wow. Oh, how the tides have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is the number one thing that we see here. But yeah, alcohol, and it's you can't watch TV without every other commercial being a beer commercial. It's just it's you're surrounded by it, and it's so readily available. You can get it anywhere. So for me, that's always one of the harder things to come off of. For me, if I want to get back on opiates, because I was never the street opiate guy, I wouldn't even know where to start other than going and trying to get a prescription. Like that's going to
Right.
be a lot of work. Alcohol, it wouldn't be like you can walk across the street, no matter where you're at. I guarantee you can find it. But yeah, alcohol is number one, meth number two, opiates number three. The struggle that we are seeing here and more kind of common trends and themes is we have a lot of people who are coming in for treatment. Let's say I'm a meth addict.
Hmm.
When they come in, they do a drug test, they test positive for opiates, and they had no idea. And it's just because now, through the cartels, the THC, the marijuana, the meth, the everything is laced with fentanyl. And
So
it's
they're
a
even lacing marijuana with fentanyl?
everything.
Oh,
I cannot tell you how many people I've had come through here that tested positive and didn't know it. It's literally being laced in everything. And from the cartel's point of view, it's a pretty good business strategy. I mean, the marijuana, you're not going to become physically
physically.
addicted, But if it's laced with fentanyl, now you are. Now you have to have it. So there's that supply and demand. Now there's a demand. There is a mental, physical demand for this person to have that weed. Um, so yeah, it sells and it's going to keep selling. But you know, people underestimate the power of fentanyl. That it's on a met equivalent scale. So a morphine equivalent is how they measure the
Yeah,
strength of opioids.
micrograms.
Yeah,
Kind of.
well, it depends on the drug, but it's measured in mets and when you're determining strength. So like one hydrocodone is one meth, and that means it's a method or a morphine equivalent. So it is
Okay.
1 for 1 as strong as morphine. Oxycodone is 1.5 compare or 1.5 to 1 um, equivalent with morphine. Fentanyl, I don't want to give you the exact number because I don't know it, but I want to say it's like 100 or 1,000 to 1. Like it
Holy
is,
cow.
it is crazy strong. That's why they give you 10 milligrams of oxycodone and they give you micrograms of fentanyl because the smallest amount is going to shut your respiratory system down. So I doubt the cartels are using very precise methods to put this stuff in. So,
Right.
that's why there's so many overdoses that you see now is because the littlest amount, if you're handling this stuff without gloves on and it seeps in, it can kill you. Like it is that powerful. Um, so they're getting this stuff in stuff that they don't expect it from. Then all of a sudden they go to sleep and they don't wake up because the respiratory system shut down. And that's the terrifying part of it is because as a teenager, early 20s, that adolescent time, there are going to be plenty of people who experiment. I
Right.
want to try this. My friends are doing it. Well, now all of a sudden you think you're trying something, trying marijuana for the first time, and it's laced with fentanyl and it's such a heavy dose. They don't know that it's in there. And how can you prepare yourself for something, that you don't expect? You know what I mean? And that's a terrifying thing, like to know that it's in absolutely everything without our knowing or our consent.
Man. Now, do you get people that come in actually fentanyl specific as
Yeah,
well?
every day, every
Oh,
day.
wow.
We're a 32-bed facility, and we never do not have a waiting list to get in.
Wow. Man. So, you guys, so you have the inpatient stuff and
Yep,
you do behavioral treatment, everything kind of full program
for
and
sure.
whatnot. Um, what, um, what, what else do you do? Do you take part in any sort of community type stuff? For awareness, and then also how I know Tyler, huge hub for faith-based stuff. How has religion or faith in general played a part? I don't, growing up here, it I have a warped view because it was always kind of it's more like rivalries or
Sure.
which church do you belong to?
Yeah.
Um,
In a sense, which
where
country club do you belong to at times?
to me, I'm more like a hey, we all need water. We all know what water is. Maybe we just call it something different.
Yeah.
So how has faith played a part in that? And then kind of what are some of the outreach stuff you do locally if you guys participate in any of that?
Faith is the part. Like at Cenikor, we don't push a faith.
Right.
Whatever your higher power is your higher power, and you need that to be your foundation. Because in my opinion, and in Cenecor's opinion, a lot of it is built around that. We live in the Bible Belt.
Yep.
In Tyler, there's 300 plus churches. It is crazy how many churches are in
And
this
probably
town.
299 banks. Everywhere there's a church, there's a
Right.
bank.
Right. I think there's way more churches than banks. It's
Yeah.
crazy. This many churches as houses, but there's a very specific religion that's here in Tyler. Do we have people come in with a different? 100% we do,
Yeah.
but it's not that common. So the outreach, the partnerships that we have, a lot of them are with some of our churches. We go to a church every Sunday that our clients get to go.
Hmm.
We do baptisms out back here for people who want to do it. Obviously, it's not, again, something that we push, but it's available if people want it. Other places that we work with, we just did an IPE at UT Tyler for
Hmm.
all of the med school students, the pharmacy students, the nursing students. Did a 4-hour IPE for them about addiction, what they're going to see, how it's going to show up in your practice, how you can help, how you can treat. Um, so yeah, we have a lot of different partnerships. We have another Cenikor location here in Tyler called the YRC, and it's our youth outreach group. So
Okay.
they're going to the schools, doing the prevention stuff. They're working with the youth. They have after school programs that they can come to. We're hitting it at every level. And unfortunately, we're not going to rid it.
Man. Yeah, I know I wanted to get out of here. I graduated high school a year early and joined the Navy at 17. And but the older I've gotten, and now that my daughter is 11 and going on 12, I enjoy it here. I enjoy kind of I always tell people like what makes it feel the way it does is you're not near an interstate all the time unless you're like in Lindale going to Longview or Dallas,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
So even my mother-in-law, my wife's from the Woodlands, and it's like you got to get on the feeder just to get to a grocery store, and so
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
freeway adjacent, and
Yeah.
it's so much, I feel like. And I'm the more I age, I enjoy the a little bit of a slower pace.
Yeah. The
But
solid.
what about now is what are some of the barriers that people have, let's say when getting into some of your programs financially? Is it insurance based? Are there self pay? Are there grants? How does that work?
Yes, to answer your questions, it's all of the above. We are contracted with the HHSC to where we do receive state contracts or grants that can be funding for people, the indigent
Mm-hmm.
clients that need it. But we also accept commercial clients, all major commercial payers we accept Medicare, which is a whole nother battle, but I think that's something that we're going to be doing here in the near future. Um, Barriers that we see, a lot of it comes from one, anytime you deal with commercial payers, you know this.
Yes.
Commercial payers, they have people hired to find reasons to deny claims. Like they're trying their
Mm.
hardest not to pay. That's a battle you're going to face in any healthcare setting, and we face that here. If you leave one T uncrossed, we're denying it. That's a battle. The other battle is it costs us Cenikor about roughly $260 a day to treat somebody because we have a full-time NP. We have nursing on site 24 hours a day. We have 24 hours behavioral technicians. We have 4 counselors here, 12, I don't say 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week. There's an overhead that comes with that. We got to keep the lights on. Things aren't getting cheaper,
No.
food costs. But it costs me about $260 to treat a patient, and the state will pay us around $125 a day.
Okay.
So I'm losing $100 a day every time that I treat an indigent client. That's why 90% of the state-funded only, non-for-profit treatment centers across the state have now closed. Because if you're relying strictly on state funds to stay open, you're not going to make it. We have a very unique business model where we do both. We do the state funding, we treat the indigent clients, but we also accept commercial, we accept VA. That fills that gap. We get $125 roughly from the state a day. Some of the commercial payers will pay us $350 a day. The VA, some of those payers may pay us $1,000 a day. So we're able to take the money from that, put it back towards the indigent clients, and
Yeah.
we're still able to continue our mission of serving absolutely anybody that needs care.
Close the gap and still make enough profit that
If we can
you
keep
know,
going,
because I'm this kind of person. I'm enough. Like, if you have enough to keep on with the mission, that
yep.
should be enough. It shouldn't always have to be more, 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 more. Even if
Which
you're a
you're always going to
nonprofit.
see in a for-profit, it's always going to be more.
Yeah, even in some not-for-profits, it's always more, 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 more.
Sure.
But I think that's kind of the American way in a way. So,
For sure.
but what are you wanting to see in the future? Is there anything you guys are looking to do differently? Is there anything kind of coming down the road that would maybe be favorable to getting, whether it's the government, insurance payers, to actually sink more into addiction treatment?
Yeah, over the last few years, we've seen the federal government pour out more grants and do more things for awareness, for prevention, for opiate
Right.
epidemic. There's been a lot of funding, but as you probably know, a lot of the federal funding has been cut lately, like major cuts, and we're seeing even more and more layoffs. We're seeing more and more places close because of this. So yeah, this industry is taking a hit right now. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find those facilities who are struggling. Those facilities who are struggling financially, let us come in. Like, let us come in, let us pick you up, come under our umbrella. Let us keep serving this community because we know your community is likely only being served by you and it
Right.
needs you. So let us come in and help. That's one of Cenicor's, I'd say, second missions right now, outside of just serving the clients, is if there's any other non-for-profits out there, for-profits, whatever it is, but that are out there that are struggling financially to figure out how to make this work, that's okay. Like everybody is struggling that are operating strictly on state funds, but there is a way. So we want to come in there and keep providing services to those communities. What I want to do, what my mission is I feel like we have to somehow break the stigma. Like there is a stigma with addiction that you're flawed, you're broken, and it's those people. No, it's not those people. It's us. We all have our problems. We all,
Mhm.
if we're going to put it simple, we all have our addictions. Maybe yours is sugar. Maybe
Yeah.
yours is binge watching the Kardashians. Whatever it may be, you have your vice that you're ridding the pain from, whatever that may be. We don't need to look at the people who have alcohol abuse or opiate use disorder any different. They've just found a different way to manage theirs. But the stigma that comes with it creates that fear for people, even like me, to want to come out and ask for help because I don't want to be labeled as one of those people. And I want to get rid of that somehow. It's an uphill battle, and I'll probably never get it done, but I'm going to give it my damnedest to do it.
I was like, hey, part of your part of the deferment was you have to go on Podmatch and educate people.
I love it, man. Let's do it.
It's funny. My daughter was the one. I was actually applying. I was reapplying back to Christus where I got laid off to the
Yeah.
pain clinic or the pain management people because they used to visit my clinics. And when I was filling out the application, it was kind of like me dropping my pride of applying back to the place that laid me off.
Yeah.
And my daughter goes, "Why don't you just start a podcast? Do you really want 2 and 3 a.m. phone calls anymore?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And less than 2 hours, they had already denied my application anyway. So shortly after that, I started a podcast and quit drinking, and kind of here we are, and still,
Love it.
figuring things out, but through therapy, coaching, and trying to hone myself into some sort of entrepreneurship, but in
Yeah.
dealing with people, in dealing with care, because I feel in a way too, like you say, the stigma of addicts. Um, when I was a live-in caregiver for Buck, the 97-year-old veteran, I mean, one of his doctors, he was like, just keep them fed and watered, like
The
I don't
horse.
know, because older people, they're the economy for like the medical system and a lot of things,
Yeah.
but then they're counted out in a lot of other areas, and we're forgetting about knowledge, wisdom, stories, tradition, and all kinds of stuff. And they're not getting the social interaction or connection
Yeah.
that people who go into the workplace experience. And I remember a friend I went to high school with, I just hadn't seen his parents in a while, and I go, he's like, my dad's having a little tough time because he can't do the stuff he used to do. And I was like, well, let me come visit because I'm have this idea of starting this kind of community type thing, and
Yeah.
to see their faces light up just to have a visitor and whatnot. It's like, yeah, just because they're not making, the U.S., we pride ourselves on, is it technology and, you know, innovation, stuff like that, and speed, which is kind of to the youth.
Yeah.
But, as people live longer, they're people too. And,
Amen,
they
brother.
contributed a lot, and they still have a lot of knowledge, and people are going to live longer, and they can still be useful. And I had this weird thing. It's like, well, we'll let somebody in their upper 70s, lower 80s run the country, but would you ever, they're not going to hire somebody who's 70 or 80 to run the facility you're doing,
Yeah.
or even the company, the organization. Most CEOs are in their 50 to 55.
Yeah.
So it's this weird dichotomy and view that we look at, that it's suitable for them to be okay at this, but forget about them in this situation. And you brought up this interesting point of them not accepting Medicare. Are you seeing people over the ages of, like, let's say 65 with substance addiction
Yes,
issues
yes, 100% we are.
that want to and actually get off of it?
Yes, and the way that we're able to do it is a lot of our partners,
Hmm.
but the grants and stuff that we have also kind of gives us the ability to do that if it needs to be done. But there are a lot of other treatment facilities out, not necessarily in Tyler, but Dallas, whatever that may be. They'll
Yeah.
come get you. But yeah, there's plenty of them out there. But yeah,
I didn't
100%.
even think that I really didn't think, because most of the time people 65 and up, they're on medications for a bunch of stuff anyway.
Yep.
But and so uh like I have a hard time in my brain computing and going, like, let's say a 70-year-old addict, but
Yeah,
you could probably see a 70-year-old alcoholic easily, or
100%.
but also that want to maybe quit and get better, because they probably figure they're near the end, why give it up now and all this stuff. So when you said Medicare, but also I know that there's different people that go in the Medicaid, Medicare umbrella.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even figure that as an age group, so it's kind
Yeah.
of
It
surprising.
is. It is prevalent, and it's prevalent in this area. Um, and a lot
Wow.
of people they want to get off for the same reason that I wanted to get off. Some of them want to get off medically, have to get off medically. Stop now or your
Well,
time's
not
coming.
only that, as everything inflates and coverages get less, the affordability. Some people, hey, if well, I mean, when I got laid off and didn't have insurance for 2 years and would use my clinic as self-pay unless they get labs twice a year and this and that, I knew what our self cash pay prices were.
Yeah,
And part of me losing 65 pounds and going from 9 prescriptions to one was like, hey, I don't have health insurance anymore. I was like, interestingly enough, when I started taking all the medications is when I had health insurance and could afford them. I could afford doctor's visits. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's kind of some bullshit. I'm like,
yeah,
really? As if you're a healthcare worker, like, you should be more healthy, like pushing it, like you
yeah,
said, not kind of being that fraudulent of just knowing I have this in my background that I'm helping you get better while I'm killing myself silently,
yes, sir. Yes,
you know?
sir.
But is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I would have, or is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
No, man. There are people, and this is, I would say, this is for anybody that's listening to this. Addiction isn't as foreign as people think it is. There's
Right.
people in your family who are struggling. There are people, friends that are struggling, friends of your family. I mean, you don't have to look far, and you're going to have somebody that's close to you that is struggling. They don't have to struggle alone. They don't need to struggle alone. What they need from you in this instance is love. And
Compassion.
yes, it is. I get that all the time. My friend or child, whatever it is, they won't stop drinking, and I'm trying to get them to go to treatment, but they've gone twice, it didn't work. And all these things. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And the answer is the same. You need to love them. You need to love them if they're drinking. You need to love them if they're not drinking, because if you push so hard that they're going to need, go to treatment, go to treatment, go to treatment, stop drinking, they're going to end up, even if it's subconsciously, cutting you off, because the level of self-hatred an addict feels is always going to be way more than the hatred or dislike you may have towards an addict. They hate themselves more than you do, I promise. They're going to cut you off. So when that time comes that they're actually ready for help, you're not going to be the person they're going to call. The only way that you can guarantee that you're going to be part of that conversation when the time is right for that person to want to stop is to be there for them regardless. They need to know that they're loved regardless. And when that time comes that they are ready, that the Lord presents them with a situation that, yes, I want to quit, they're going to call you and you'll have the ability to help. But don't, just because somebody in your life is struggling with an addiction doesn't mean that they're any less of a person, that they need any less love than anybody else, because they probably need it more. And they're still the same person that you loved before you found out they were an addict. So don't stop now. They're struggling. Help them. Just like I wanted somebody to help me, it's It's simple. Love them regardless, and I promise when the time comes, they'll reach out to you. And then when they reach out to you, reach out to somebody like me. Holler at a treatment center or somebody that may be running an AA meeting, but there's always going to be those resources out there that will find whatever help that the person wants. They don't have to do it.
Yeah. And admitting, that's the fucking hardest part.
Yeah, it is.
Saying I need help and, but what somebody told me, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah. As my I guess we call him my boss, but the guy that I report to says the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes that was always seen as I guess when you're told that, like when you're in the military or the whatever, it's usually based towards somebody complaining. But, the thing is take it out of the complaining context and put it in the open your mouth, ask for help. And I know, especially as men, we're stubborn. We want to figure it out all on our own. And we don't want to appear weak. That's also a whole other thing because we're expected to be strong.
And it's not a character flaw. You're not weak. It's not a moral issue. Like, you're sick. Addiction is an illness classified by the
DSM-4.
DSM, but what's the other one? CDC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's classified as an illness, just like diabetes. It's not. They need insulin. Okay, it's a treatment. It's a medical disease. It's not something that you just get over. You can't will yourself out of diabetes. You can't will yourself out of cancer. This is no different.
I interviewed an ENT doctor who's working kind of as a coach to address physician burnout, but he ended up cough syrup samples, opiate, and all that. Brent Cordis, and great interview, but I had trauma. I was on a bus that ran over the girl that sat in front of me at 7 years old that was never addressed, and much more trauma throughout that by the time I was 25. But there's people who grew up without that and ended up with the same, like you said, it's not a character flaw. I mean, like I try to remind people, we all get the same ending no matter what. I don't care what your bank account looks like. I don't care what frickin' degrees hang on your wall. You think you're better than me. You're going to die just like I am. So the one thing we can do to each other is have some kindness, compassion, and whatnot, that we're really more alike than we are not. And I think the same is true when it comes to that addiction piece of it, is whether it's a torn meniscus, a back injury, you start off doing something noble. You take it as prescribed, but we don't get to control what happens physiologically all the time. I mean, just like you can take I saw a lady taking lisinopril for 12 years, and then all of a sudden she gets angioedema from it, and her lips swell up, and she looks like she's on the cover of National Geographic with the people who put the plates in their lips, and it was scary. And I was on lisinopril at that time, and I fucking immediately, I was like, I want to go do something different. Losartan, amlodipine, but if that can happen at any time, and that's just one thing from any other drug, but it happens with everything else. And it starts off sometimes innocent, a muscle relaxer, a pain pill, because you had a fall or something.
Nobody sets out to become an addict.
Yeah, that's 100%.
It happens despite you wanting it to happen.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate this conversation, and I will definitely be hitting you up, and I'll stop by sometime when I'm out on my Uber travels. Now that I know, and that this was awesome. It was great talking to you, and
I appreciate you having me.
Man, small world, real small.
Sure is. All right, sometime we'll go to lunch.
Yeah, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you out there, man. And keep doing what you're doing. And
you as well. We'll do. Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Bye.
Let go.